Good evening. Welcome to St. Peter's in Hove, and welcome to our very next step along the way in our walking tour through the Bible. We're just going to have a quick look at Exodus 17 and 18. It forms a little interlude between the manna from heaven and the actual covenant. First of all, the people say they're dying of thirst. Moses strikes the rock, and water gushes forth, and the people are satisfied, and is their livestock. And Moses appeals to the Lord for help, we're told in 17:4, and says, "How am I to deal with this people?" In other words, Moses finds the people ungovernable. Then later on in chapter 18, Jethro, his father-in-law, turns up, and Jethro gives him some wise advice. Jethro says, "You'll tire yourself out, constantly adjudicating between the Israelites," and therefore he tells Moses that he should appoint deputies who will administer justice. And thus we have the foundations of the world's first, not quite first, I suppose, legal system. In other words, Moses took his seat to administer justice for the people. The people said, Moses' father-in-law said to him, "Why do you do this for the people? Why do you sit here with the people standing around you from morning till evening? What you're doing is not right. You will only tire yourself out. Now listen to the advice I'm giving you." And so he says that he has to appoint 72 justices, 72 men to administer justice. They will be the people's permanent judges. They refer important matters to you, or minor matters they will decide themselves to make things easier for you. And of course, then also we chose capable men from all Israel and put them in charge of the people as heads of thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens. And then the father-in-law goes away, having given out this very good advice. One of the things we've got here, and this is a bit of a theme already in the earlier books of the Bible, and it becomes more of a theme later on, is the importance of organization, the importance of order, the importance of everything being done smoothly, and the importance of law, tradition, and how can I put it? The importance of good order without rigidity. Now, if you believe in good order, and don't forget, good order is so incredibly important. The vast majority of people on this planet, live without good order. It's clearly the will of God that we should have good order. God has appointed Moses as the leader of the people, and Moses appoints deputies, so everybody has got government, and there is sort of a chain of command. To want to be well governed is not to want to be rigid, it's not to be fascistic, it's not to be frightened of the disorder of the world. We should hold back disorder. And this means, for example, we should try and govern natural forces, we should try and govern ourselves, and above all, we should try and govern human relations. In other words, human relations must be worked out through a set of rules. And this, in fact, is more or less the theme of the first 5 books of the Bible, which are called the Pentateuch, and which, of course, the Jews call the Torah, or the teachings. In other words, the books of the law. So Moses is a great lawgiver. Now, this is preparing us for what comes next, which is the giving of the 10 Commandments on Mount Sinai. Moses is a legislator, administrator, and in this he reflects God, who is the ultimate legislator. God reveals himself on Mount Sinai as a legislator, as we'll see. He also reveals himself, as we'll later see in the book of Exodus, as a legislator in religious, liturgical matters. He gives a moral law, the 10 Commandments, and then he also gives the laws on worship. So those two, somehow or another, go together. God is the fount of all law. God is the fount of all authority. Do we have a problem with authority? I'm afraid that nowadays, in the modern world, a lot of us have a problem with authority. We're all natural rebels in many ways. God's authority is something we must submit to. And saying that we must submit to God is not something that should go against the grain of our humanity. For in submitting to God, we find liberation and we find order. Please reflect for a moment what it's like to live in a lawless society. I myself have lived in a lawless society. I lived in Africa for many years. And there in Nairobi, it was essentially lawless. If you called the police, they wouldn't come because they had no cars or this, that, and the other. And even if you did call the police, it made really no difference, or if you went to the police, because they were not particularly good at enforcing the law. It's true there were courts and men in wigs and men with maces and so on and so forth, but on the streets there was no law and respect for law. So if you walk down the street, you always walk down the street very carefully, because somebody might jump out and whack you on the head and steal your glasses or something like that. Living in a lawless society is very, very unpleasant, because you can never relax, you're always frightened. So what we've got to remember is that God gives us the law, God gives us justice. Justice is one of the attributes of God. What does justice mean? Justice means giving to each his own. Justice means also that each one of us as a human being can dwell in peace and security. Now that is really very important. Security is something that's often talked about in Africa as something that's lacking. We all want security. To want security is not to want a bad thing. In fact, it's to want a very good thing. So God administers or gives us the law. He also gives us the liturgical law. These things reassure us and give us security. It's natural that we should want security. So don't let anybody tell you this nonsense about, oh, you don't like, if you say, let's keep to the law, let's keep to the traditional way of doing things, don't let them tell you that somehow or another you're craving for a security blanket or something like that, or you're somehow not grown up, or you're somehow immature, or you're somehow or another a little bit unhinged. No, it's a perfectly human desire for security. And Moses, as the ruler of God's people, is the one who is there to ensure the security of God's people as well. Okay, so you see in these two chapters the emergence of the people of Israel as a people who are bound together by a law. And that is also very important. It's not racism, it's not racial awareness that holds the people together. It's rather an acknowledgement of the authority of the law. All the best then. Bye.